Hello there, fellow gamers. I'm Kevin J, and this video is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to upload Chapter 11 of Fire Emblem Awakening, but I just don't have the time to edit it. It actually took me a lot of time. There were a lot of fails, and I'm just too busy with school and work to really have the time to edit it. Those videos take a long time to edit. So instead, I'm going to be doing something that I've wanted to do. There's a new Fire Emblem game coming out. It was just revealed at the recent Nintendo Direct, and I figured, hey, let's do a trailer analysis. I think it'd be a lot of fun. People have done it for Pokemon games and Zelda games. Maybe I can do the same sort of thing here. So I'm gonna look into it, and hopefully you guys can point out some stuff that maybe I didn't notice. Consider it a little bit of a preview, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I will let you know if there's any Awakening spoilers and the things that I'm gonna say, but this should be fun, and Chapter 11 of Fire Emblem Awakening will be out tomorrow. With that being said, let's get right into this teaser trailer. So we start off here with a battle going on between two armies. Both these armies seem, I would like to point out that the outfits that these army guys are wearing, or these warriors are wearing, are very ornate, very Japanese looking. So I don't know how big of a deal that plays into the story, but it's interesting to see such an art style in the game because you usually don't see stuff like that. Usually the characters' outfits are very tame, if you will, although in Fire Emblem Awakening the characters looked very medieval, and this looks very feudal Japan. You can even notice that I'm assuming the ones on horseback are evil, as they have these very demonic looking masks. I don't know. We now see a Pegasus Knight, which means that there are going to be Pegasus Knights back in the game, and then there's this huge war going on. So it definitely seems that there is going to be a big war going on in the game, although that's not out of the realm of the story. But suddenly, this guy shows up. This huge behemoth giant thing shows up. And I'm not going to lie, he's really creepy looking. He reminds me of something, but I can't put my finger on it. I swear there were statues that had that face before, but it'd be very interesting to see giant statues in a game like this. Generally in Fire Emblem, the last boss is usually some very big creature of some sort. And usually those creatures play a role in the story. Not all the time, but it has been done before to have some giant creature as the final boss. And this could be another one of those. Maybe this giant could be the final boss, or giants could be a big part of the story. Who knows? This is one of the more noticeable parts in the trailer for me, just because it's so random. You don't see this in a lot of Fire Emblem games where a gigantic giant, I know it's redundant, is just demolishing something like this. So who knows what it's going to look like in the game, or how big of a role it's actually going to play. Maybe it is just the final boss and they're talking about resurrecting it or something. But who knows? We'll see. Let's keep watching. We then see a duel going on between, I'm going to assume, a Great Knight of some sort and a character who looks to be of the Myrmidon class, or Swordmaster class at least, as you can see that the character has two sheaths. Sheaths are the things you put the swords in. It has two of them, so I'm going to say that's like a Swordmaster class, but the Swordmaster class never really had shoulder armor. So because of that, this main character here, or this character who has very oddly effeminate blue hair, looks like a main character. Having armor could mean that it's a Lord class and they just happen to have two swords. Just making quick speculations on who the Lord might be. And we can't really make heads or tails of the Cavalier Great Knight guy there. We then zoom out from this photo. Kind of reminds me of the Halo trailer, a Halo 3 trailer. And then we get this dance here from this cute blue girl. She's wearing a very dark purple robe here. And her long hair really reminds me of Ninian from Rekka no Ken, which is simply called Fire Emblem 7, or it was just called Fire Emblem in North America. It was the first one to come out here. She really reminds me of Ninian, who was also a dancer with very long blue hair. They obviously do look different, but I mean, she's definitely got to play a role in the story if she's going to show up like this. So who knows? She could be some tragic dancer or something. Who knows? We finally get to see some of the gameplay here. And I would like to point out some of the classes that we can see on the screen. Now, first off, the character that is being attacked before we get into the attack animations is a weird sort of bow class. It looks kind of like an assassin, but it's holding a bow. And because it's holding a bow, maybe there's a new class that uses a bow, or it could be that assassins, when they're using a bow, now have a new sprite for depending on the weapon they're holding. Because on the ally side, there's a couple of blue enemies that kind of look like thieves or assassins that are standing in a very similar position, except they're not holding bows. So maybe they have their own sort of sprite art now that's very significant. There's also 2 red-headed Pegasus Knights. It looks like we have 2 healers. As you can see, there's 2 staffs. One might be a sage, though. You can't really tell. There's also 3 allied characters and 3 enemy characters. Let me count. 3 allied characters and 3 enemy characters that don't seem to be holding any sort of weapon in their hand. Now, I want to say that these characters could not be holding weapons for 2 reasons. That blue-haired ally could be the dancer that we saw in the previous scene. The purple-haired girl with the weird pom-pom heads. I want to say she could be some sort of shapeshifter, maybe. She could be a Togwell, because I believe the Togwell, were they called Togwell? No, they were called the Lagoos in the Radiance games. The Lagoos, or the Lagas, I don't know what they're actually called. The shapeshifters in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, they stood in a very similar position to these characters with their hands down, and they didn't have weapons, but that's what they did. It's interesting. They could be shapeshifters. They could be a whole new type of class that maybe doesn't hold weapons, or maybe the weapons just aren't in the sprite. Who knows? Anyway, so the fight happens between these 2 characters, and you get this really cool transition where it zooms down, and then the fight happens. So we get this cool character with a very odd-looking sword, and then with her attack animation, she does a little backflip afterwards and lands down. That animation is different from every other animation in Fire Emblem Awakening, and since I'm going to be comparing the game to Fire Emblem Awakening a lot, I'm going to be assuming that she is a Lord character. Mainly because not only is her attack animation very different, but her sword is very different from the iron swords and bronze swords and everything in Awakening. So either the swords are different, or she's wielding a very specific sword, and very specific swords usually belong to the Lord. Anyway, so then we get to the next fight here. You see more of the same enemies. We also have a new ally that's holding a bow in a very odd way. Who knows? Maybe that's a new class. Again, not standing like a sniper, not standing like an archer. It could be a brand new class altogether. We also see that the Dark Knight up there on the enemy side is coming back from Awakening. Awakening has a very similar looking class, which means my comparisons aren't too far off, because some characters do look very similar. I mean, the Cavalier's sprite looks almost the same. The Troubadour sprite down there looks almost the same, and the Dark Knights look almost the same. So Awakening probably isn't a bad comparison, because it seems like some of the classes are the same. We then see another fight after this red-haired girl comes in. We'll notice that the Pegasus Knights actually have a brand new attack animation. I think that's really cool, seeing them fight in a whole different way, with them sort of landing on the ground. You know, I can't help but think that with the way it lands, it seems very like baby-ish. Maybe the Pegasus Knights want to land more. I don't know. It just seems weird that the Pegasus Knight would land when it's known for flying, right? And if you're having a war, you would probably, keep flying. You'd want to be in attack mode, if you will. And speaking of war, you'll notice in the background during these fights, there's a whole crowd of units behind you. And I guess they're just trying to really build up that war situation, or really build up that war theming. Because as we saw at the beginning scenes, it was all about, 2 armies just crashing into each other. So maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe this game is really about 2 armies just clashing, and now you're caught in the middle of it, and they're trying to build that up by showing a whole bunch of army guys behind you. We then get some shot of some maid. I have no idea who she is. She's probably going to play a big role in the story. I want to assume that with the position and everything of things that are happening, it seems like it could be our main character is waking up from a deep sleep or something, and this maid character is the first one who finds her. It could also mean that there is an avatar character again, and this is the avatar character waking up. Who knows? Continuing on, we then see our white-haired friend, who you can see his sprite is also wielding a sword. It could be that this is the same white-haired kid from the scene before who was fighting the Great Knight, talking to this weird, bald, evil-looking guy, but he happens to be green on the map. He wields an axe, could be like a fighter class, but he's standing in a lot different position than the fighting class. No, it doesn't look too far off from the fighting class sprite. I don't know. But yeah, it's just probably him recruiting him. Then we get this blonde-haired guy. It probably is the Dark Knight from the scene before, or the last fight scene we saw, because he also had blonde hair. He seems like an antagonist, but who knows? We then see another fight happening with some character doing a front flip, or that white-haired guy doing a front flip, I should say. Hits a guy, and notice how the backgrounds are very feudal Japan looking, which, again, helps with the ornate armor we were talking about earlier. Anyway, and then we get into another fight happening where a character is coming over and blocking an attack for a cavalier. Now, not only does this show that dual strikes are back in the game, or at least dual supports are back in the game, but the class that does the blocking looks a lot different than the knights. The shield is a lot smaller, the armor is a lot less bulky, and it's a girl, I believe, that's long hair on her. And I'm gonna say that this could be a halberdier or the soldier class. There was a soldier back in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn named Nephany, and she could become a halberdier and then a sentinel. And the sentinel class looked a lot the same. They could only use lances, and they had this shield. So it could be the same. The class could be coming back. It is sort of a fan favorite. A lot of people liked Nephany, and she's like a one-of-a-kind unit. So that could be really cool to see that coming back. It could also just be a knight that happens to wear fitted armor. I don't know. Continuing on, we then see a cool ice blast coming from some girl. So maybe there is some new kind of spell casting unit. Maybe that's what they were not holding weapons for, but they just didn't seem like normal spellcasters because normally they'd be wearing a cloak. Now they're sort of wearing new items. And then some axe-wielding unit comes flying in. She's got a weird... Can't tell if that's her hair or a hat, but dual supports are back in the game. And then we see this dark guy, looks like the blonde-haired guy again, jumping up and stabbing this huge monster-looking thing. So speaking of giants, it could be that giants and monsters are in the game because we clearly see one getting attacked here. That's not a normal person. Who knows what that thing is, but it's really cool that we get to see a glimpse of it. We then fly down the mountain. And it fades into a world here. I don't know if this world is like, it's very Skies of Arcadia looking with pieces of the world like floating in the sky, but some of them seem upside down and all over the place. Maybe there's going to be some sort of spatial rending Palkia attacks, flips the world all over the place and breaks it up into pieces. Who knows? It seems like it could be a cool premise. That's all it really looks like to me. There's not much else really happening in this scene. Who knows how it's going to play into the story. We fly around, and then we see a blue-haired girl, this time in white. I'm going to assume it's the same person, because they have the same eye color and everything, falling into the water, which would hopefully enforce the white girl that we saw on the map screen is the same girl. And she just keeps falling, and then we wipe into this white battle screen here, where we see the blonde-haired guy again, the blue girl dancing, and a guy with long, black, spiky hair. Who knows if he's an antagonist or a protagonist? I can't even make heads or tails if the blonde guy's a good guy or a bad guy, because it seems like he was red on the one map screen. I don't know. I'm super excited for this game, and I hope that it comes out decently soon, maybe early 2016 at the latest. If you've seen anything in this trailer that maybe I missed or something, let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, if you'd like to see more of these, I'll definitely keep up with all the trailers. I know I was a little long-winded in this one, but I'm going to try to cut that down for future trailer reviews. I figured you're not getting a full episode of Fire Emblem Awakening anyway. Maybe you'll enjoy this better. I don't know. So yeah, tomorrow, more Fire Emblem Awakening. Chapter 11 we'll start doing, and I will see you guys all later.